Last week on Tuesday Talks with Toomey, Dan and PJ discussed best practices for contract adoption. Access, readiness, and alignment are the fundamentals to launching your contract with the right decision makers.
And so the IDN Directory is almost like a Swiss Army knife in your back pocket, if you will, because it gives you access to the contact details, tells you a little bit about what those IDNs are going through right now.
Dan covered the importance of day one readiness for your contract, which includes not only building a relationship with your GPO contract manager, but involving your sales and operations teams early and often.
Because you have not only the sales team trained and ready, but internally from your admin side, your operations side, supply chain, everything's lined up and everybody's talking the same language of day one readiness. Staying kind of the same topic, if you're building out your business and you're looking at your accounts, you're trying to see where the contract spend is, you kind of see where maybe some opportunities are. Are there things that IDN Directory can offer around, like if I'm looking at a region, where maybe some upside is, or where some spend is, or operations are? Does IDN Directory kind of pull some of that together to help target, and grow those opportunities well within maybe a GPO?
We do. So kind of, it's a little more, it's a little maybe less drilled down. I mean, what we offer is we offer spend data from different departments. So we can kind of show where different departments are putting their money and kind of what cases they're taking. We can also show like kind of Medicaid expenditures as well and reimbursements with, we have access to kind of inpatient and outpatient reimbursement codes. So we have some data that can kind of show people where kind of the money is going and can kind of give them, I guess you could say, a good indicator of where a facility may have needs. We see kind of the recurring, like, hey, these guys are doing these procedures over and over again, and they're doing a lot of discharges, and you guys have a product that fits right into that space. This could be a good smell test for you to kind of reach out to them and say, hey, look, looks like you're doing a lot of this type of procedure. Our product fits directly into that procedure and that operation. We'd love to talk to you guys about seeing what you're using and seeing if there's maybe ways we could, offer you more cost savings or more efficiency, better inventory, less risk of shortages, things like that. So we can certainly help kind of drill them down into areas where we can help them kind of steer where their need is. So I think that's something that we're getting better at with the IDN Directory, and we've now been able to kind of help people identify areas and maybe facilities where they hadn't thought about, but now they're kind of like, oh, interesting, these guys are doing these cases. That's what we do. We should be looking into this. So it kind of spark the engine in a little bit of a different way, because then you find something that you weren't expecting.
How does that's actually very powerful, because I think about this from a sales tool, right? And the customers that you have, your clients that you have, other vendors, do the sales team get access to this as well, or is this just one or two people that kind of manage it and then send out the information?
No, so we encourage the entire sales team to get involved. In fact, when we do our licensing, it's unlimited seats, because we want everybody to be able to access this. We know how powerful of a tool this is for people, especially on the go. If they're in an airport and they need to get a quick read on, hey, I'm going to this facility, I need to review who the contacts are, or maybe you lose a phone number and then boom, it's right there in your phone. You can access it through your phone or your laptop. So I think that, what I always tell teams is sure, if you have a super user that's going to do all the work and kind of act as a mother hen, if you will, that's great. But really, we find great value in letting your whole team get access to this, because anybody, obviously you want alignment within the team and you want everybody to kind of communicate well with their territories and their areas. But I think that anytime I do a demo with somebody, I always ask the marketing folks, or if it's a sales leader, I said, bring more of your sales team on, because I want them to see this as well. So we encourage the more the merrier for us. Absolutely. The more that use it, the more that gets benefit out of it. That's how we can help people at a higher level.
Good. It's invaluable to be able to look at accounts, find not just, names and information of the hierarchy, if someone is at the IDN, but if I can use this as a targeting tool, not only as a sales rep, but as a leader, I think about how am I going to build out my IDN team, or my go-to-market strategy was the launch of a contract, and where do I want to focus my time? Where, if it's having this kind of information at your fingertips is just one of many tools that you could be using right? Information you have on your own historical sales or other products are there, or even market share, by, a heat map. Sometimes the GPO will help navigate a little bit that of some of the top users. And, they won't give you the sales, they won't give you the part numbers, but they'll say, hey, here's our top 100 users, and you can put that into your own map and navigate. It's build out, right? Where do I spend? Where do I want to put an extra body? Where do I need maybe ship this IDN directors, the top 15, that one or two of them aren't really working. Well, I can navigate them over and slip this one in here, because now through IDN Directory, I can see some other hot points, and it matches up with some of the other mile markers that I put in place and build out new KPIs that way.
Absolutely. No, we're very invested in that. And with the news articles and everything else that we put into play, it just really kind of keeps you in the know. It's one thing like to have, again, just a name and a phone number, but it's also good to know a little bit about that system. Maybe it was somebody from our webinar series that you got the chance to sit down with, and now you feel like you have a little more opportunity to speak with them and got some knowledge that you didn't normally think you could get by just seeing them at a conference, because now you got them for an hour on a webinar where you could learn some things. So it's definitely, it's a good way to start building the relationship. That's kind of where I would turn it back to you, because obviously, with you and MedBridge Advisors, like we were talking about before, like access is great, but really being able to, ferment that. You got to use a wine reference, but a bottle of wine is great when you put it in the bottle, but it needs time to ferment before it turns into the delicious wine that it becomes over time. And so relationships do take time to build, and relationships are all about what we're doing, right? We're all focused on these relationships. So I would ask you kind of a big question, how do vendors build better supply chain relationships in the space?
So you touched on two things that's important for everyone to understand, right? So relationships are important. And how do you build them? How do you get to them? And there's so many different people to meet, and people leave and they move on, like we talked about. And then how do you use that into the future of your contract? And look, I will say this, it's not just one person that builds a relationship. Yes, it's personable. You and I can have a good relationship and we get along, but when you're looking at the business aspect of it, they've got to have a good relationship with your company. So transparency is very important. And having conversations around where you are with your inventories, having an open book policy around, why our pricing strategy is set up this way. And this is what we're sticking with, but here's why up front. Up front, I can already say I built in our lowest price into our GPO contract. And yes, you can get there. There's ways that you can get to it, right? But just to say I want my lowest price day one, it's not fair, right? That's not a good relationship. That's just an ask. But I would say it goes beyond that too. It's who you bring to meetings, right? Are you bringing a sales rep with you so that they can learn the atmosphere of the hospital? Are you bringing marketing with you so that they can really help with clinical questions, or marketing and product management? Kind of put them together. And are you bringing your supply chain team? How often is your supply chain team meeting with their supply chain team? Right. So you're integrating with that customer to a point that you're getting a relationship with multiple people, but it's building the brand, right? It's building the trust. And then when they come to you as the IDN director, as the sales rep, GPO manager, right? They know what your company is about, and you've built that baseline of what your customer experience is going to be and what you're going to offer them, because you're telling them up front, hey, here, we have some weakness points here, some really strong points here, but we're working and evolving, and we're building a new warehouse, or we've hired, 20 new people and they're going through new training, and here's what we expect in the next 30 days. Like, it sounds like things you might not want to share, like behind the curtain, but it goes a long way to building that relationship, because you're giving them information about you that's a little bit personal, and then they can lean on you and ask you because they feel like you're a little bit more of an open book.
That's that's important. I think like you said, I mean, the rule of thumb, I don't know if it was Zig Ziglar who said it, or one of those kind of old school sales guys, but he said, something around the lines of, people buy from people they trust. And I think that trust is so important in the healthcare space. And I think that's, you guys are doing that really well, is helping people understand that trust, how to strategically position it, but also make sure it's genuine at the same time.
Yeah. And you don't want to overlook that part of, like, hey, like you said before, I've got names, I got phone numbers, I got emails. It's great. You can reach out all day and send emails, but you're not really connecting, right? So what are some things that you've seen whether it's through using IDN Directory or just best practices that you've seen vendors do that really not just start with, everyone has to start somewhere, whether it's phone call or an email, but really stand out, like be prepared. Like, what have they done and said, hey, I really was able to use this service to kind of stand out and build a relationship faster from just an everyday business mentality.
Well, the first, it comes with some small level of education. For me, I'm always trying to find out what it is that my customers need. What are my prospects, my future customers, I should say. What is it that they need? What is it what kind of data points do they need? But also, who are they engaging with as well? That's also a really important one. I feel like before COVID, it was a little bit easier. It was like if you were selling stuff into a hospital and you were going into an OR, you were probably talking to an OR person. And then later on, after COVID kind of broke open a little bit and things, people started going to shows again, it seemed like all of a sudden now there was this new triple threat, which was going to be the supply chain folks. And then all the OR decision-making was going up to supply chain. So then it changed the dynamic because it was like, oh, well, we're not comfortable talking to these people. Well, it's like, well, you're going to have to get comfortable talking to these people because these are your new purchasing leaders now. These are the people that are going to be writing the checks and doing the business with you. So where like some of my old OR customers, when I used to work more in the OR and surgical space, kind of were shifting and starting to be like, oh, hey, look, and those supply chain folks are becoming more our people now. Then now what's happening is it's kind of like there's been a tsunami now. Now it's like supply chain basically gets the wave of everything coming at them. And now there's new people that have come to the fore to try to come out and start to become more of a player and help a little bit with kind of offsetting some of the responsibilities of the supply chain folks. And so one I would love to talk about just very briefly today is the growth and strategy officer. The growth and strategy officer, surprisingly enough, was not somebody that I ever thought would be a big player. When you think about purchasing, you think about chief supply chain officer, you think about procurement leader, and you think about a value analysis person. And usually between the three of them, they can come up with a comprehensive plan working with a supplier to figure out a good contract and make it work. Well, if there's one thing we know about supply chain folks, especially in today's world, the first thing they're usually going to talk to you about is pricing. That's the first thing they're going to kind of hammer you on. And there are many companies out there, especially in today's world with the tariffs, that are not going to be really in a strong position to negotiate their price point, or may already have contracts in play and are looking to renew them for the coming year. And so what I found is that the supply chain leaders are great. They have tons of awareness. They have tons of understanding. They deal solely with bottom lining and, making sure the house is filled with goods. Then you have these growth and strategy officers that come out of school, and most often they have some economics or finance training. And so what happens is that they become a little more fiscally understanding to price point in regards to ROI and how it's going to affect ROI. And so now what happens is that if you go to a growth and strategy officer and they're like talking to you about pricing, in the back of their head, they're churning and they're really thinking about the ROI and how it's going to help the hospital. And so sometimes they can become your new champion and say, hey, look, I know supply chain, you've kind of hit these guys hard on the head with your pricing model and what you need. We can see some really great opportunity here for the hospital and the facility here as we go and make some money off of these products. And we'd like you to take a deeper look into the kind of ROI element of what we can do with this. And so that's something that I've started to try to, I don't want to use the word coach because I'm not a coach, but it's something that I've started to talk about with my customers and say, hey, look, maybe you want to think about these people, because if you're getting the door shut all the time by these kind of the trifecta of purchasing, you have to start, you don't want to just give up. You just need to find a different way in the door. And, me being, again, an access guy, I can give them those call points. But if they don't really understand, like, hey, why would I even talk to a growth and strategy officer? I feel now it's my job to not just learn about giving people access or be able to give them that, but also it's so important for me to know who it is that they're talking to and what those people can do for those prospects and customers. So I think the good salespeople are going to really start to think, hey, who are the other people in this purchasing game that I can talk to? And I do feel like the IDN Directory, because we listen to our customers so much, as soon as I heard customers and prospects telling me, hey, growth and strategy officers, you got to have them in your network, boom, we started adding them right away, because we said, hey, look, we want to have everything we can to help people on their purchasing adventure. and make sure we can get them in front of the right people. And it may not always be a one-stop shop with just that supply chain director or that procurement person or that, that value analysis person. There may be others that you need to reach out to or others that get looped in to make this whole thing work and get synergy out of it.
You do. That is an absolute invaluable tip. Thanks for sharing that. I think about value analysis today, right? There's so many people that are part of value analysis. Everybody thinks of value analysis as a group of people that sit behind a curtain and make decisions, whatever they feel like doing that day. But what was not, I think ever really told is there could be 7 people, there could be 15 people that are on this value analysis committee, right? And it's who else could be involved that could be a decision maker, and having a growth and strategy officer or someone from environmental services or procurement, facility managers, depending on your space, right? If you know your space, everybody's a little bit different, right? But depending on your space, you got to think about who else could touch this, who else could have a say, and think about what their needs could be. Because as you're building out a value analysis strategy or just a presentation to an IDN for the first time, it's not always just about the dollars and savings, right? It's about the value you're bringing to the hospital. And there's so many different dynamics of that conversation that could happen. That is a very good tool, a very good person to want to reach out to get to know. And they might give you some tidbits of what they're trying to do financially for the health system. And then you can incorporate that into your presentation to, the right folks, whether that's contracting, value analysis, supply chain, or if you're all the way at the C-suite. So that's good stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. I wanted to be able to get that nugget out because that's always something that I talk to my people about, because I'm just like, hey, do you guys know about this? Like when I started to get a whiff of what that was like or what that was happening, and more people started talking about it, I was like, oh man, I gotta like be the paper boy on the corner here with my like little paper boy hat and start telling the whole world about this because I want everybody to be successful. And so I have a really kind of important question for you here as I kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of GPO compliance. And that's kind of something that I've gotten lots of questions about, as some of my customers in kind of my old realm where I used to work before, we're always looking to kind of get GPO contracts, especially smaller companies. And they would ask me questions about compliance and like, what's it look like, on that side? And so that's what I would ask is, how would you say vendors should stay GPO compliant, but also kind of still be able to meet those local needs of the area as well?
You got to know your GPO really well, to build your strategy. Every one of the GPOs have a completely different operating strategy, contracting strategy, clinical strategy. So really know your GPO first before you can build out what you can do off contract or from a local standpoint. I think, Premier and Visi, they really want to drive their members to use what's on contract, and they offer a good solution. And Health Trust has always been very compliant, right? That's what they're known for. They don't do a lot of big multi-category contracts, but if you're on contract, the members know, hey, I got to stick to what's in the parameters. So you really got to know which direction you're going and who you're working with, so that you can build out and say, okay, what else can I do with you? So if the IDN is a little more lenient and believes that the GPO is a good structure to help them find products, baseline pricing, set up the T's and C's ahead of time. But if they're willing to commit above and beyond what that contract is, are you willing to write a local contract that has other incentives? And that could be, hey, we're not going to change our price lower than what's on the contract, but we could offer a bigger rebate at the end of the year. There's just ways that you can get creative to try to reward the behavior that you want within the parameters of the contract. So they're staying contract compliant. You're staying in the good graces of the GPO because you're staying contract compliant. You can keep getting the help from the resources that they offer. But is there, again, know what the behaviors you want to get and what you can get out of it. Use their GPO contract as your framework and then build upon it. Now, in some of the contracts, if you're not on contract, you're like, well, I can't get sales because I'm not on contract, but I need to be on contract to actually get sales.